Michael, we had the RBA Governor, Philip Lowe, in Parliament yesterday. He'll be back there tomorrow. He's facing the House of Representatives Economics Committee. He got grilled by the Senate estimates pretty harshly yesterday, particularly the Greens there weren't happy. Do you think he's being unfairly treated?
Well, of course he has. As he said, the board makes these decisions and he's just doing what every central bank in the world are doing. I mean, rates in Australia are much lower than they are in the US, for example. So he's doing what everyone else is doing. But here's the point. Philip Lowe is not going to be reappointed. And what the government are doing is they're subliminally and not so subliminally shifting the blame for these interest rate rises to him and the Reserve Bank. So after September, when the rate rises have basically been done, they will say, wink, wink, for the last year and a bit, this was all that Philip Lowe who we got rid of. That's Labor's strategy. So from September on, when they have a new governor, they'll keep saying the interest rate rises under the previous governor appointed by the Liberal Party. So that's Labor's strategy. It's an appalling, it's disgraceful, quite frankly, that Stephen Jones, the Assistant Treasurer, can come out and attack the Reserve Bank governor. Here's my question that the gallery should be asking Labor. Did Stephen Jones' comments, were they authorised by the Prime Minister or the Treasurer? And if they weren't authorised, were they aware he was going to make those comments before he made them? And if they weren't, they should have been. And what happens behind the scenes, Rita, is either he or his staff have negotiated with the staff of Albanese and the Treasurer to let Stephen Jones off the loose, to take
Are you
news.
suggesting he was appointed as some sort of a head kicker to go out there?
He hasn't made those comments without approval from the Treasurer's office or the Prime Minister's office. If he had made those comments without the authorisation of the Treasurer or the Prime Minister, he would have been sacked by now. So that Albanese can get up in the Parliament and say they were never raised with me before they were made, often what will happen is his staff will have raised it with Albanese's staff and said, Stephen wants to do this, and Albo's staff and the Treasurer's staff will have said, mate, that's okay. You go, let Stephen Jones go out there and attack the Governor, because we're getting rid of the Governor in September and we want to be able to put as much blame on him as possible. That's Labor's strategy. It's pretty obvious to old stagers like me, but obviously not as obvious to everyone in the press gallery, because that's the questions they should be asking Albo and the Treasurer.
Now, the job numbers are out today and the unemployment rate has jumped from 3.5% to 3.7% in the past month. The rise in unemployment, Bronwyn, comes as we're seeing interest rates go up, we've got inflation up, they're all heading in the wrong direction.
Well, the point is this, Rita, that the aim of putting up rates and forcing there to be less liquidity in the economy is aimed at seeing some businesses go broke and people become unemployed. That's why it's called a blunt instrument. But concomitant with that, you have to have a government doing its part, which is to reduce spending, to rein in expenditure, and yet it is not doing it. It is spending money like a man without arms, or throwing the money away. And it doesn't matter whether the expenditure is on budget or off budget. It doesn't matter whether the expenditure's on rewiring the nation or any other form of expenditure. It is not doing its part, which is why everything Michael said is absolutely correct. They're trying to lay all the blame at the feet of the Governor of the Reserve Bank, as well as Ukraine, of course, and by calling continually referring to the Reserve Bank Governor as the independent Reserve Bank, you know, over there, nothing to do with us. They're trying to lay all that blame and lay it from them, but it's not going to work ultimately. At the end of the day, people elect a government to take action to stop the things that are bad for the community. Now, we remember when the Treasurer was the advisor to Mr Swan, the then Treasurer, what did we get? We got Prices Watch, and it was about as useless as the policies they're putting in now. Everything they are doing is in fact feeding into inflation. And if they keep on the path that they are going, they keep saying to the unions, we're going to push wages up, and we get into a price-wage spiral, we are in serious, serious trouble. Now, the Commissioner was saying that in those hearings in the Senate yesterday, but they were kind of subliminal to the words that the government chose to pick out and say, look, he's saying what we're doing is just fine. It's not. You cannot abrogate your responsibility for fiscal policy as the government and expect the Reserve Bank to do it all via monetary policy. It's called a blunt instrument because it hurts and it covers a whole lot of people who are going to get smashed.
Well, people are getting smashed already. The average mortgage for some people who are coming off their fixed rate in the coming months is going to jump up $16,000 per annum. That is just such an enormous sum for ordinary families to be able to absorb.